Next, it's my privilege to yield to a gentleman from Utah, Chris Stewart, Air Force pilot for 14 years, flying both rescue helicopters and B-1 bomber. He holds 3 world speed records, including the world's record for the fastest non-stop flight around the world. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Wenstrup, for organizing this special order honoring our country's heroes. And it's a privilege for me to be with you tonight. Thank you. As you mentioned, I come from a family with deep roots in the military. I was a pilot for 14 years. My father was a pilot in World War II. 4 of my 5 brothers have served in the military. And I got to tell you, my time flying in the military was in many ways, the happiest years of my life. I remember I'd be up flying and I'd think, I can't believe that they pay me to do this. I would do this for free if I could. In addition to my family members, 3 of my congressional staff are veterans. I know firsthand some of the sacrifice that comes with service. The time away from family, the personal discomforts, the danger, being put in harm's way for many of our soldiers, all to protect our nation and to protect the freedoms of others. There have been great sacrifices in the past. Some of those we've heard about tonight, I suspect we'll probably hear about some others. I'd like to mention one man from my hometown of Farmington, Utah. I think he's a great example of sacrifice and courage. His name is Lieutenant Colonel Jay Hess. He spent 5.5 years as a prisoner of war in the Hanoi Hilton during the Vietnam War. During this time, you can imagine what he endured. Starvation, beatings, isolation, deprivations which it's very, very difficult, probably impossible for us to appreciate. After 2.5 years, he was finally given a letter from his family. And as he read this letter, he found himself smiling, and after a while it hurt because those smile muscles had not been exercised in 2.5 years, and he'd lost that ability to smile. It was a joyous day when he was returned to his family, his wife and 5 children. Yet despite all of this hardship, he looks back on his life and his experience with great humility and appreciation. He said, "How could I be so lucky? So fortunate. It is a good life." This man was a true American hero. But heroism continues today. This fall I had the opportunity to honor 4 Army soldiers. 2 of them, Sergeant Darrell Williams and Sergeant John Russell, who were jogging here on the National Mall one morning. When they heard a collision, they looked over and saw that a civilian had been hit by a bus. They didn't hesitate. They knew immediately what to do. They ran over, and using their shirts, they provided a tourniquet, and they saved this man's life. Now that may seem like a small thing, but it's a great example, once again, of the caliber of men and women that we find serving in our United States military. As Veterans Day approaches, I find myself humbled to share this background and experience with such people. I've always said that the military is the greatest incubator for leadership that there is anywhere in the world, and we see that demonstrated again and again. And finally, let me end with this. The United States of America is a special place. Now, I recognize that most nations feel that way. Everyone's proud of the land from which they come. I think God intended that they should feel that way. That's a good thing. But even though that's true, there's something special about this place. There's something truly unique about the United States. And there's no better example of that than the young men and young women that serve in our United States military. We don't fight to conquer a people. We fight to keep a people free. We don't fight to capture a land. We fight to set a land free. And the only thing we have ever asked is, as Colin Powell once said, a small piece of pasture where we could bury our soldier dead. If you've ever been to a military cemetery, and they are spread all over the world, from France and England and the Netherlands to Panama to the Philippines to Japan, if you have walked among those stone-cold graves, you know that this is sacred land. A poet once wrote about these soldiers. Here dead we lie because we did not choose to live, and shame that land from which we had sprung. Life, to be sure, is nothing much to give, but young men think it is, and we were all young. I, like millions of other Americans, will always be grateful for their sacrifice. I honor them, and once again, I'm grateful to be among them. And with that, Mr. Wenstrup, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.